بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم عن جابر بن عبد الله الأنصاري عن فاطمة الزهراء عليه السلام بنت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله قال سمعت فاطمة أنها قالت دخل علي برسول الله في بعض الأيام فقال السلام عليك يا فاطمة فقلت عليك السلام قال إني أجد في بدني زعفا فقلت له أعوذ بالله يا أبتاه من الزؤف فقال يا فاطمة ائتني بالكساء اليماني فغطيني به فأتيته بالكساء اليماني فغطيت به وسرت أنظر إليه وإذا وجهه يتلألأ نورا كأنه البدر في ليلته تمامه وكماله اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد فما كانت إلا سعادة وإذا بولد الحسن قد أقبل وقال السلام عليك يا أمه فقلت عليك السلام قرة عين وثمرة فؤادي فقال يا أمه إني أشم عندك رائحة طيبة كأنها رائحة جد رسول الله فقلت نعم إن جدك تحت الكساء فأقبل الحسن نحو الكساء وقال السلام عليك يا رسول الله أتأذن لي أن أدخل معك تحت الكساء فقال عليك السلام يا ولدي والصاحب حوضي قد أذنت لك فدخل معه تحت الكساء اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد فما كانت إلا ساعة إذا بولد الحسين قد أقبل وقال السلام عليك يا أمه فقلت عليك السلام يا قرة عين وثمرة فؤادي فقال يا أمه إني أشم عندك رائحة طيبة كأنها رائحة جد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله فقلت نعم إن جدك وأخاك تحت الكساء فدنا الحسين نحو الكساء وقال السلام عليك يا جده والسلام عليك من اختار الله تأذن لي أن أدخل معكم تحت الكساء فقال عليك السلام يا ولدي والشافعي أمتي قد أذنت لك فدخل معهما تحت الكساء اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد فأقبل عند ذلك أبو الحسن علي بن أبي طالب وقال السلام عليك يا بنت رسول الله فقلت عليك السلام يا أبو الحسن يا أمير المؤمنين فقال يا فاطمة إني أشم عندك رائحة طيبة كأنها رائحة أخي وابن عمي رسول الله فقلت نعم ها هو مع ولديك تحت الكساء فأقبل علي نحو الكساء وقال السلام عليك يا رسول الله أتأذن أن أكون معكم تحت الكساء قال له وعليك السلام يا أخي ووسيي ويا خليفتي وصاحب الواعي قد أذنت لك فدخل علي تحت الكساء اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل ثم أتيت نحو الكساء وقلت السلام عليك يا أبتاه يا رسول الله أتأذن أن أكون معكم تحت الكساء قال عليك السلام يا بنتي يا بسعتي قد أذنت لك فدخلت تحت الكساء اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد فلما اكتملنا جميعا تحت الكساء أخذ برسول الله بطرف الكساء وأومع بيد اليمنى إلى السماء وقال اللهم إن هؤلاء أهل البيت وخاصة وحامة لحم اللحم ودمهم دمي ليؤلمني ما يؤلمهم ويحزنني ما يحزنهم أنا حرب لمن حاربهم وسلم لمن سالمهم وعدو لمن عاودهم محب لمن أحبهم إنهم مني وأنا منهم فاجعل صلواتك وبركاتك ورحمتك وغفرانك ورضوانك علي وعليهم وأذهب عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا اللهم صل على محمد فقال الله عز وجل يا ملائكتي وسكان السماوات إني ما خلقت السماء مبنية ولا أرضا مدحية ولا قمرا منيرا ولا الشمس مزية ولا فلكا يدور ولا بحر يجري ولا فلك يسري إلا في محبة هؤلاء الخمسة الذين هم تحت الكساء. اللهم صل على فقال الأمين جبرائيل يا رب ومن تحت الكساء. فقال عز وجل هم أهل بيت النبوة ومعادن الرسالة هم فاطمة وأبوها وبعلها وبنوها. اللهم فقال جبرائيل يا رب أتأذن لي أن أهبط إلى الأرض ليكون معهم السادسة. فقال الله نعم قد أذنت لك. فهبط الأمين جبرائيل وقال السلام عليك يا رسول الله. العلي الأعلى يقرئك السلام ويخصك بالتحية والإكرام ويقول لك وعزتي وجلالي إني ما خلقت السماء مبنية ولا أرضا مدحية ولا قمرا منير ولا شمسا مزية ولا فلكا يدور ولا بحر يجري ولا فلك يسري إلا لأجلكم ومحبتكم وقد أذن لي أن أدخل معكم فهل تأذن لي يا رسول الله. فقال رسول الله وعليك السلام يا أمين وحي الله إنه نعم قد أذنت لك. فدخل جبرائيل معنا تحت الكساء فقال لأبي أن الله قد أوحى إليكم يقول إنما يريد الله ليذهب عنكم الرجس أهل البيت يطهركم تطهيرا. فقال لي يا أبي يا رسول الله أخبرني ما لجلوسنا هذا تحت الكساء من الفضل عند الله. فقال النبي والذي بعثني بالحق نبي واصطفاني بالرسالة نجي ما ذكر خبرنا هذا في محفل من محافل أهل الأرض وفيه جمع من شيعة ومحبين إلا ونزلت عليهم الرحمة وحفت بهم الملائكة واستغفرت لهم إلى أن يتفرقوا. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. فقال علي نزل الله فزنا فهذا شيعتنا ورب الكعبة. فقال النبي الثاني علي يا والذي بعثني بالحق نبي واصطفاني بالرسالة نجي ما ذكر خبرنا هذا في محفل من محافل أهل الأرض وفيه جمع من شيعة ومحبين وفيه محموم إلا فرج الله همه وحلاغ مغموم إلا وكشف الله غمه ولا تعلم حاجة إلا وقضى الله حاجته. فقال علي إذا والله فزنا وسعدنا كذلك شيعتنا فازوا وسعدوا في الدنيا والآخرة ورب الكعبة. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم إني أسألك بحق محمد وأنت المحمود وبحق علي وأنت الأعلى وبحق فاطمة وأنت فاطر السماوات والأرض وبحق الحسين وأنت محسن وبحق الحسين وأنت قديم الإحسان وبحق الأئمة التسعة الطاهرين من ذرية الحسين عليهم السلام. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
पर मोहम्मद वाले मोहम्मद सल्लल्लाहु बाबा मेरे बाबा बाबा मेरे बाबा बाबा मेरे बाबा तेरी ज़हरा पे मुसीबत की घड़ी है हाय बाबा तेरी ज़हरा पे मुसीबत की घड़ी है ہائے بابا کیسے دروازہ ہٹاؤں کیسے محسن کو بچاؤں سانس سینے میں رکی ہے تیری زہرا پہ مصیبت کی گھڑی ہے ہائے بابا ہاتھ میں جس کے میرا ہاتھ دیا تھا تم نے کہہ کے من کن تو مولا جسے کہا تھا تم نے میں نے ہر موڑ پہ بابا ساتھ اس کا ہے نبھایا کیا میرا ظلم یہی ہے تیری زہرا پہ مصیبت کی گھڑی ہے بابا تیری امت نے بنا دی ہے یہ حالت بابا کوئی فصلی بھی نہیں میری سلامت بابا سانس لیتی ہوں میں جس دم رکنے لگتا ہے میرا دم صرف مرنے کی کمی ہے تیری زہرا پہ مصیبت کی گھڑی ہے کبھی دربار میں پیشی کو بلاتے ہیں ہمیں کبھی دروازے پہ آ کے ستاتے ہیں ہمیں میرے یہ پھول سے بچے پوچھتے ہیں یہی مجھ سے کیا خطا ہم سے ہوئی ہے تیری زہرا پہ مصیبت کی گھڑی ہے ہائے بابا شرم آتی ہے بھلا تم کو بتاؤں کیسے یہ تماچوں کے نشاں تم کو دکھاؤں کیسے تم نہ پہچان سکو گے دیکھ کر مجھ کو کہو گے کیا میری زہرا یہی ہے تیری زہرا پہ مصیبت کی گھڑی ہے ہائے بابا تیری زہرا پہ مصیبت کی گھڑی ہے اور محمد والے محمد صلی اللہ
محمد والے محمد صلی اللہ
اور محمد وآل محمد صلوات Allah should be here in 5 minutes, so Bismillah, let me just recite a mankabat, make that mahol for Agha. اور میں خصوصاً چاہتا ہوں کہ آپ ایسے غور کریں کہ میں جو منقبت پیش کرنا چاہ رہا ہوں کہ سکون کس میں ملتا ہے ہمیں، تو اطمینان ہو کہ سب سکون کو حاصل کرتے ہیں. تو اہل بیت علیہ السلام بالخصوصاً مولا عباس کس سے سکون پاتے ہیں کہ ملتا ہے سکون اس کو جو کہتا ہے سکینہ، ملتا ہے سکون اس کو جو کہتا ہے سکینہ. سب پڑھے میرے ساتھ طالب ہے. ملتا ہے سکون اس کو جو کہتا ہے سکینہ، ملتا ہے سکون اس کو جو سکینہ. دیکھ رہے ہیں میں کون کون آواز دے رہا ہے، آگا بھی آ رہے ہیں، ابھی ماحول تو بنایا. ملتا ہے سکون اس کو جو کہتا ہے سکینہ، ملتا ہے سکون اس کو جو کہتا ہے سکینہ. اور شبیر تجھے اپنا سکون کہتے ہیں بی بی، ہاں شبیر تجھے اپنا سکون کہتے ہیں بی بی، یہ سب سے بڑا تیرا قصیدہ ہے سکینہ، یہ سب سے بڑا تیرا قصیدہ ہے سکینہ، ہاں ملتا ہے سکون اس کو جو کہتا ہے سکینہ، ملتا ہے سکون اس کو جو کہتا ہے سکینہ۔ اور سنیں کہ وہ جس کے پسینے سے نبی خلق ہوئے ہیں، ہاں وہ جس کے پسینے سے نبی خلق ہوئے ہیں، اس سے تو تیرا خون کا رشتہ ہے سکینہ، اس سے تو تیرا خون کا رشتہ ہے سکینہ، ہم ملتا ہے سکون اس کو جو کہتا ہے سکینہ، ملتا ہے سکون اس کو جو کہتا ہے سکینہ۔ اور سنیں کہ بے مشق علم سج کے بھی اچھا نہیں لگتا، دیکھیں یہاں پر بے مشق ہے کہ بے مشق علم سج کے بھی اچھا نہیں لگتا، عباس سے یہ کیسا تیرا رشتہ ہے سکینہ، عباس سے کیسا تیرا رشتہ ہے سکینہ، ہم ملتا ہے سکون اس کو جو کہتا ہے سکینہ، ملتا ہے سکون اس کو جو کہتا ہے سکینہ۔ اور بالخصوصاً ہم جب منقبت پڑھتے ہیں تو ایک فیورٹ بن آتا ہے اس میں، جس سے ہم بہت قریب ہو جاتے ہیں جب پڑھتے ہیں، یو فیل ویری گڈ اباؤٹ اٹ۔ سو یہ جو نیکسٹ بن پڑھنے جا رہا ہوں اس میں مجھے کافی سکون ملا ہے، بٹ میں چاہتا ہوں کہ اگر میں وہ پاس کر سکوں تو کیا بات ہے کہ وہ ہاتھ تیری مدح کی تعریف میں اٹھے، ہاں جو ہاتھ تیری مدح کی تعریف میں اٹھے، وہ شمر کی صورت پہ تماچا ہے سکینہ، وہ شمر کی صورت پہ تماچا ہے سکینہ، ہم ملتا ہے سکون اس کو جو کہتا ہے سکینہ، ملتا ہے سکون اس کو جو کہتا ہے سکینہ۔ اور زندان کو بھی قید سے آزاد کیا ہے، ہاں زندان کو بھی قید سے آزاد کیا ہے، اس بات کا شاہد تیرا روزہ ہے سکینہ، اس بات کا شاہد تیرا روزہ ہے سکینہ۔ اور یہ بن میں اہمیت دیکھیں حجاب کی کیا اہمیت بتائی ہے اس نے جال بھائی، کہ رخسار پا کے تیرے ہاتھوں نے بتایا، ہاں رخسار پہ آ کر تیرے ہاتھوں نے بتایا، اسلام میں چہرے کا بھی پردہ ہے سکینہ، اسلام میں چہرے کا بھی پردہ ہے سکینہ، ہم ملتا ہے سکون اس کو جو کہتا ہے سکینہ، ملتا ہے سکون اس کو جو کہتا ہے سکینہ۔ اور اصغر کی بہن آپ کے بھائی کا یہ جھولا، ہاں اصغر کی بہن آپ کے بھائی کا یہ جھولا، ہم سب کی مرادوں کا خزانہ ہے سکینہ، ہم سب کی مرادوں کا خزانہ ہے سکینہ، ہم ملتا ہے سکون اس کو جو کہتا ہے سکینہ، ملتا ہے سکون اس کو جو کہتا ہے سکینہ۔ اور عباس کی درگاہ سے کیا کچھ نہ ملے گا، ہاں عباس کی درگاہ سے کیا کچھ نہ ملے گا، اور فدوی کی دعاؤں کا وسیلہ ہے سکینہ، فدوی کی دعاؤں کا وسیلہ ہے سکینہ، ارے ملتا ہے سکون اس کو جو کہتا ہے سکینہ، ملتا ہے سکون اس کو جو کہتا ہے سکینہ۔ اور یہ کچھ بات سن لے، آگا جو آئے نہیں ابھی تک، بس 2 منٹ میں آنے والے، تو آپ سن لے کہ لوگوں یہ فضیلت ہے عباس کے نوکر کی۔ کیا فضیلت ہے کہ لوگوں یہ فضیلت ہے عباس کے نوکر کی، لوگوں یہ فضیلت ہے عباس کے نوکر کی، اور دنیا پہ حکومت ہے عباس کے نوکر کی، لوگوں یہ فضیلت ہے عباس کے نوکر کی۔ اور عباس کے نوکر کو پرواہ نہیں سانسوں کی، عباس کے نوکر کو پرواہ نہیں سانسوں کی، سانسوں کو ضرورت ہے عباس کے نوکر کی، ہاں سانسوں کو ضرورت ہے عباس کے نوکر کی، اور پانی وہ سبیلوں سے پیاسوں کو پلاتا ہے، ہاں پانی وہ سبیلوں سے پیاسوں کو پلاتا ہے، سکائی وراثت ہے عباس کے نوکر کی، لوگوں یہ فضیلت ہے عباس کے نوکر کی۔ اور دیکھیں مجھے کہ کیا جوش آتا ہے یہ بن میں دیکھنا چاہتا ہوں کہ شبیر کے ماتم میں جو ہاتھ نہیں اٹھتے، شبیر کے ماتم میں جو ہاتھ نہیں اٹھتے، ان ہاتھوں پہ لعنت ہے عباس کے نوکر کی، ان ہاتھوں پہ لعنت ہے عباس کے نوکر کی۔ اور ایسٹر ہے نا کل، اس کے لیے سن لیں یہ بن کے کہ عیسیٰ آمد پہ یہ عیسیٰ کی مریم نے کہا ہوگا، ہاں آمد پہ یہ عیسیٰ کی مریم نے کہا ہوگا، دنیا میں ولادت ہے عباس کے نوکر کی، ہاں دنیا میں ولادت ہے عباس کے نوکر کی، اور ماتم کے نشان ہوگے سجدوں کے نشان ہوگے، ہاں ماتم کے نشان ہوگے سجدوں کے نشان ہوگے، یہ خاص علامت ہے عباس کے نوکر کی، یہ خاص علامت ہے عباس کے نوکر کی، لوگوں یہ فضیلت ہے عباس کے نوکر کی۔ اور بچ بچ کے گزرتے ہیں خود زلزلے جا جا کے، اور بچ بچ کے گزرتے ہیں خود زلزلے اس جا سے، ارے جس پاں پہ بھی تربت ہے عباس کے نوکر کی، ارے جس جہاں پہ بھی تربت ہے عباس کے نوکر کی۔ اور استاد سبتے جعفر کے لیے یہ من کہا گیا ہے کہ استاد کو یہ کہہ کر کاندھا دیا لوگوں نے، جاؤ پہ سنیں کہ استاد کو یہ کہہ کر کاندھا دیا لوگوں نے، لگتا ہے یہ میت ہے عباس کے نوکر کی، ہاں لگتا ہے یہ میت ہے عباس کے نوکر کی، لوگوں یہ فضیلت ہے عباس کے نوکر کی۔ اور میر سجاد کے لیے دعا کریے گا اس بار میں کہ سجاد کو اے مولا مختار بنا دیجئے، ہاں سجاد کو اے مولا مختار بنا دیجئے، ارے دنیا کو ضرورت ہے अब्बास के नौकर की लोगों ये फजीलत है, अब्बास के नौकर की। और दुनिया पे हुकूमत है अब्बास के नौकर की, लोगों ये फजीलत है अब्बास के नौकर की। बर मोहम्मद व औले मोहम्मद सलवात।
Yes. Could you just tell the brothers with the white camera to zoom in more? Okay. It's okay.
एक नारे सलवात।
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم كن لوليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك. For the hastening of the reappearance of the Master, the Savior, the Avenger, Al-Hujjat ibn al-Hasan al-Askari, recite a louder salawat ala My dear brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Al-Shaykh Abu Abdullah Muhammad ibn Nu'man, known as Al-Mufid, who was born just 7 years after the end of the lesser occultation of the Imam of our time, delivered a series of lectures, talks, sermons in which he would address a gathering of the Shia of the Ahlul Bayt in a house on the outskirts of the city of Baghdad. And in those gatherings, Al-Shaykh al-Mufid, who, as we said last night, was one of the most influential and senior scholars in the history of the Shia faith, he provided the audience with gems of wisdom, traditions and words from the Imams of the Ahlul Bayt, the Holy Prophet and his immaculate household, in no particular order or theme. The idea was to present the audience with selected narrations each of which had its own significance and importance, as well as relevance to the lives of the Shia. Some of those traditions were ethical in nature. Some had to do with our matters of belief and creed, and everything in between. I recited to you last night one of those narrations, and we discussed that particular tradition. I'd like to continue on that theme and read to you another hadith that Al-Shaykh al-Mufid recited to his audience in that holy month of Ramadan almost 1,000 years ago. Shaykh al-Mufid, by the way, lived until he was well into his 80s, and eventually when he passed away, he was buried next to his teacher Ibn Quluwayh. Can anyone guess where that is? The burial place of Al-Shaykh al-Mufid is right next to the sacred shrine of Imam Musa ibn Ja'far and Muhammad ibn Ali al-Jawad. And now every time the followers of the Ahlul Bayt visit that majestic shrine in Kadhimain, they also pay their tribute to Shaykh al-Mufid and his teacher Ibn Quluwayh. So the hadith I've selected for you tonight is from the 5th majlis, the 5th gathering that was held, and the hadith number is hadith number 10. Al-Shaykh al-Mufid narrates, and this hadith, by the way, is also found in other collections of hadith, including a book by Shaykh al-Mufid's teacher, who was Ibn Babawayh al-Saduq, in his famous book Kamaluddin, or as Allamatul Majlisi calls it, Ikmaluddin. The book is known by both names. The reason I'm giving you all these references, by the way, is to connect you to these books. It's important for us to go back to the original, unsullied, pure and unadulterated spring of knowledge that is the words and wisdom of the Holy Prophet and his family. Brothers and sisters, Shaykh al-Mufid himself narrates in that same book, Al-Amali, a hadith from Imam Al-Baqir alayhi salam, who tells Jabir ibn Abdullah al-Ansari, the famous companion and righteous companion of Rasulullah, and he says to him, Ya Jabir, لحديث تأخذه عن صادق خير لك من الدنيا وما فيها. One hadith that you acquire from a truthful person. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وكونوا مع الصادقين. Who are the صادقين? The Ahlul Bayt. The Imam says to Jabir that if you take one hadith from one who is truthful, meaning from an Imam, or from a truthful transmitter of hadith, one of the companions or pious scholars, a hadith you acquire from them is better for you than everything, than this world and everything that's in it. One hadith can alter your path entirely, can change the course of your history. One hadith can inspire you to be a better human being and to create a better world around you. One hadith often illuminates your mind and your soul. So the Imam says, try and acquire these hadith. This is why, brothers and sisters, we have traditions. For instance, a hadith by our 6th Imam, who says that if you want to know, listen carefully to this. This is a key metric that allows you to evaluate scholars and preachers and speakers. The Imam says, اعرفوا منازل شيعتنا. If you'd like to know the ranks and stations of our followers, you need to examine how much they quote the Ahlul Bayt. اعرفوا منازل شيعتنا على قدر روايتهم عنا. See how many traditions they narrate. Obviously, You might be thinking, well, it's not about quantity, it's about quality. I agree with that, that's okay. But isn't it tragic and heartbreaking and sad that some speakers in different parts of the world would get up and give an entire lecture and not a single hadith is mentioned? You hear them quoting people like Rumi, people like Hafiz, people like Sa'di, people like this and that, poets and Sufi mystics, but not a single Qal al-Baqir or Qal al-Sadiq. How far have we veered from the path of the Ahlul Bayt? These are the words of your sixth Imam. You want to know the rank and station of this person? How many hadiths do they know? How much can they quote the Imams of the Ahlul Bayt? على قدر روايتهم عنا وفهمهم منا. Also, it's not just about the number of ahadith you can quote, because ChatGPT can quote many ahadith. Whether they're correct or not is another discussion, because there's a lot of errors, and I've tested it myself. A lot of times it makes mistakes. A lot of times it takes a hadith and it attributes the hadith to Abu Hanifa. So I get into this discussion with ChatGPT saying, this is a hadith of Amir al-Mu'mineen. And the response I got was, yeah, well, maybe Abu Hanifa was inspired by one of the words of Ali ibn Abi Talib. We don't know. So it makes a lot of mistakes, and you need to be very careful in acquiring religious knowledge from it. It's a tool, just like a computer or a keyboard or a mouse. You can use it, but don't rely on it when it comes to these existential and religious matters. So the Imam says, على قدر روايتهم عنا, how many ahadith they quote, and also وفهمهم منا, and how much do they understand? How much do they apply these ahadith? And so, Al-Allamatul Majlisi, he has an entire chapter in his magnum opus, the magnificent and majestic work known as Biharul Anwar. He has an entire chapter called Babun fi Fadli Kitabat al-Hadith wa Riwayatih. The chapter or the book on the merits and virtues of preserving hadith and writing of hadith. This is why when Shaykh al-Mufid sat with his brothers, the Shia of the Ahlul Bayt of the day, he would dictate the ahadith and his students would write them. They would preserve them so that you and I could come and gather around in another month of Ramadan to benefit from these ahadith. So going back to the hadith that I mentioned, that I would like to present to you tonight, as I said, Majlis number 5, hadith number 10. عن الصقر بن دلف عن الجواد. Someone says, I came to the 9th Imam and he asked him a question. The question was, why was the title of Al-Qa'im given to the 12th Imam? عجل الله تعالى فرجه. The literal meaning of the word is what? The one who rises. But why is he called the one who rises? The Imam responded. He said, لأنه يقوم بعد موت ذكره. Because he rises after the death of his remembrance. In other words, no one knows him anymore. No one remembers him. No one talks about him. He is someone who was alive and well, with his remembrance in the hearts of millions and millions. But there will come a point when that remembrance, when that existence in the hearts will be erased. We seek refuge in Allah. بعد موت ذكره. And this next statement is even more dangerous, more terrifying. وارتداد أكثر القائلين بإمامته. And he will rise after those who used to believe in him will abandon that belief. The Imam says, أكثر القائلين. The majority of those who believed in him will abandon that belief. I'll finish the rest of the hadith and then discuss these points. So Saqr says, I asked the Imam a follow-up question. وَلِمَ سُمِّيَ الْمُنْتَظَرِ? The title Al-Muntadhar, which means the one who is awaited. Why is that given to him? The Imam said, لأن له غيبة تكثر أيامها. Because he will have an occultation that will last many, many days. ويطول أمدها. And will have a long span. The occultation will last a long time, in other words. فينتظر خروجه المخلصون. Those who are pure and sincere, they will continue to wait for his return. وَيُنْكِرُهُ الْمُرْتَابُونَ. Those with doubt in their hearts will deny him, reject him. وَيَسْتَهْزِئُ بِذِكْرِهِ الْجَاحِدُونَ. And those who have a propensity and a proclivity towards disbelief will mock him. They will ridicule him. وَيَكْثُرُ فِيهِ الْوَقَّاتُونَ. And there will be many people who will attempt to set a timeline for his return. This is why we have a hadith that say, كَذِبَ الْوَقَّاتُونَ. Those who try to give you a timeline. Those who attempt to say the Imam will return this year, or next year, or the year after that, they are lying. Because there is no way for them to know. In fact, this is a trap that many people have fallen into throughout the history of the Shia faith, where imposters and liars and deviant individuals have attempted to exploit the vulnerable hearts of the Shia, who have been awaiting the return of the Imam, by creating these cults, by attracting these individuals, especially young men and women who truly exhibit a love toward the Imam and an affinity towards seeing him, by saying that I have secrets to share with you, no one else has access to these secrets. You know how a cult is usually formed? By creating an aura of secrecy and fantasy and mysticism, and they tell them that the Imam's return is imminent, it's going to happen very, very soon, and they might even give them a schedule, a timeline, and a means of creating this codependency where, because I'm the only one who knows when the Imam will return, then you have to follow me and you have to obey my every command so that you can stay within that inner circle. These are dangerous cults, brothers and sisters. The second somebody tells you that I have secrets from the Imam or about the Imam, turn away and run. The second they tell you that I have a message from the Imam, run. Don't listen to a word they tell you, even if they tell you things that you know to be true. Because that's how it works, brothers and sisters. Let's not be naive. We said this last night. When an imposter comes to you, an imposter mixes the right with the wrong. He's not going to lie to you from day one. They often, as the Quran says, or the Hadith says, يَأْخُذُ ضِغْثًا مِنْ هَذَا وَضِغْثًا مِنْ هَذَا. They'll quote a hadith, they'll quote verses, they'll look the part, they'll have the beard, might even wear the turban. They will present themselves in a way that is at least acceptable to you, that allows you to open up to them and listen to them. Be careful. These are key things you need to be looking for. The second they say, the Imam has a message, the Imam says we need to do this, even if it's the right thing to do. If they tell you the Imam has sent a secret message that we all need to pray Salatul Layl, Namaz al-Shab. Is there something wrong with namaz al-shab? Of course not. But the fact that they have linked this to the imam and some kind of secret network, it means they're imposters. So the imam says that they will reject him, they will ridicule him, they will mock him, and they will attempt to create timelines. وَيَهْلَكُ فِيهَا الْمُسْتَعْجِلُونَ. And those people who are hasty, those people who don't wait for the right time that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has chosen, they will perish. Don't be hasty. Don't say that, well, such and such happened. Isn't this part of the signs prior to the reappearance of the imam? Maybe, maybe not. It's not your job or my job to decide whether the return of the imam is imminent or not. I should prepare for the return of the imam as though it will happen tomorrow. Yes, but for me to use certain events that take place around the world as indicators of the imminent return of the imam is a big mistake. وَيَهْلَكُ فِيهَا الْمُسْتَعْجِلُونَ وَيَنْجُو فِيهَا الْمُسْلِمُونَ أَوْ مُسَلِّمُونَ. The imam says the only ones who will survive these dark, turbulent, rough waters that we described last night are the ones who are submissive. They wait and they anticipate and they prepare. They do all the things they're supposed to do as if they're about to be called tomorrow. Like a soldier. I'm sure you've heard examples like these. A soldier, a reserve army soldier, is always ready. They even have their backpack. If they're called upon to go to battle, they don't need to start training because they've already trained. They've already prepared themselves. They've even already said their goodbyes. Everyone expects them to go at a moment's notice. So be ready to go at a moment's notice. Certain things, very specific acts of preparation for the imam. For instance, do you know how to ride a horse? It's good if you could. And I know people who are training, they learn the skill so that maybe if the time came and the imam wanted them to become horsemen, they know how to ride a horse. And there's nothing wrong with that. عَلِّمُوا أَوْلَادَكُمْ السِّبَاحَةَ وَالرِّمَايَةَ وَرُكُوبَ الْخَيْلِ. The Holy Prophet says, teach your children these three skills: swimming, archery, and horse riding. Or as the Americans say, horseback riding. And so the preparation has to happen. The anticipation has to be there, meaning anticipation is your state of mind. It's you knowing that it could be imminent, and if it is, I'm at his beck and call. لبيك داعي الله. Preparation is what you do outside. It's the things you do. And we'll talk a little bit about that inshallah. So the imam says the only ones to survive are the ones who are submissive. Like a soldier, waiting for his commanding officer to call him and say, إِنَّ الْمَهْدِيَ قَدْ ظَهَرَ. When the call is made, and by the way, the call isn't a text message that you get. It'll be something so evident and so clear, everyone will hear it. And so these little cults that are created around individuals who claim to have a connection to the imam, our response to them, or one of the responses we give to the people who fall into this trap, is, how did you know? They said, no, it's going to happen. And our response is, well, when it happens, everyone will know. You won't get like a secret message. You won't get someone knocking on your door in the middle of the night telling you that it's going to happen. No. It'll be so self-evident the entire world will know about it. It won't be something that's confusing or you'll be unsure or uncertain about. Now, in the era of waiting for the holy imam to return, as we said last night, there are going to be people who will try to snatch away your belief in him. as the Imam says, حتى وارتداد أكثر القائلين بإمامته. Most of the ones who believe in him will abandon that belief. Na'udhu billah. In other words, tests and trials will come that will filter out all the ones who are not true to their belief. Is it possible that I'm one of the people who get filtered out? Absolutely. The tests and trials are intended to purify the ones who are truly sincere. Not the ones who go with the flow or swim with the current. Not the ones who happen to be Shia because it's fashionable to be Shia. Or because my parents are Shia. Or because my community is one that I enjoy hanging out with. My friends. Or because being a Shia is something that earns me a living. But I am a Shia because it's the right path to follow. And the tests are designed to remove the impurities, just as they purify gold in fire. You don't purify gold in ice. You have to put it through scorching and high intensity fire. That's why the closer we get to the time of the reappearance, the intensity of the fire will increase. كلما قرب هذا الأمر تحديث كان أشد للتقية. It'll become harder and harder. It'll become more and more difficult. The impurities will be removed, and only the best of the best, the creme de la creme, they're the ones who continue to believe in him. Hence the Imam saying, وَيَنْجُو فِيهَا الْمُسَلِّمُونَ. Amir al-Mu'mineen, listen to this example, and I don't want to take too much time. Those who gave him their pledge of allegiance when he became Khalifa, would you say they were good people? Those who gave their bay'ah to Amir al-Mu'mineen after he became Khalifa, as opposed to those who refused to give bay'ah. Al-Ash'ath ibn Qais refused to give bay'ah. Abdullah ibn Umar ibn al-Khattab refused to give bay'ah. So those who gave bay'ah, were they good? Maybe, sure, yeah. They gave bay'ah to Amir al-Mu'mineen, okay. Then the battle of Jamal took place. Some of those who had already given bay'ah, like Talha and Zubayr, they committed what we call nakthul bay'ah, which is to rescind and take back and nullify their bay'ah. So this was a means of filtration. Okay, let's find out who's actually with Ali ibn Abi Talib. Who gave their pledge because they believed the Imam to be God's vicegerent on earth and the Prophet's appointed successor, as opposed to those who gave their pledge so that they could get appointments in government positions. So filtration happened. Some failed the test, some passed the test. Wonderful. So now the people who stood by Amir al-Mu'mineen in Jamal, were they good people? Sure, right? Okay. Then Siffin happened. Some people were confused. And so another layer, another filtration took place. Some joined Muawiyah. Like who? They were with Amir al-Mu'mineen before. Like Ubaydullah ibn al-Abbas, the Imam's own cousin. Ubaydullah ibn al-Abbas, not only did he abandon Ali ibn Abi Talib and join Muawiyah, he took thousands of troops along with him. Even though Muawiyah had killed 3 of his children, and he was a Hashimi, and he was the cousin of the Imam, he joined Muawiyah. Muawiyah would often either pay people to buy their allegiance, intimidate people to get them to submit, or simply threaten to kill them and their families Eventually, his traps were very powerful, and a lot of people will filter it out. Okay, so now, the ones who stayed with al-Mu'mineen in Siffin and fought with Muawiyah, were they good people? Sure, right? They've already been through 2 trials, 2 massive trials. Then Nahrawan happened. There were people who stood by Ali ibn Abi Talib in Siffin who left him and became Khawarij. And they fought with Amir al-Mu'mineen in Nahrawan. Would you say the ones who stayed with Amir al-Mu'mineen in Nahrawan against the Khawarij, were they good? They were better, right? They must have been great people. In fact, forget the foot soldiers. How about the commanders of the army of Amir al-Mu'mineen in Nahrawan? Would you say they were good people, having already been filtered several times? Sure. Let me mention one of them. You'll probably know his name. You'll recognize him. The commander of the left flank of the army of Amir al-Mu'mineen in Nahrawan, his name was Shabat ibn Rab'i. Who was Shabat ibn Rab'i? He was one of the commanders of the army of Umar ibn Sa'd on the day of Ashura. And he was one of the people who struck Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. He was the commander of the Imam's army in Nahrawan. And now he's here with Yazid ibn Muawiyah fighting Imam al-Hussein. After 3 incredibly arduous and difficult trials and tests and sets of filtration, he still failed. Is it possible, brothers and sisters, that you and I could be filtered at some point? It's possible. And the possibility alone should terrify us to our cores.
Absolutely.
Now, what happens when you're terrified? What happens when you're scared? Let me give you another example. Let's say you're walking in a city that is known for its safety record. No thefts take place, no muggings happen. It's a very safe city, right? Usually, you walk around that city with your guard down because you know you're safe, you're okay, nothing's going to happen to you. The last time somebody was mugged was 20 years ago, so you have nothing to fear. Now imagine walking in a city, for instance, I think they say Rio de Janeiro in Brazil, or some of these countries, maybe, don't want to mention actual countries, but some cities are known for muggings. They're known for people confronting you in the middle of the street with a knife, a dagger, or a weapon of some sort and stealing your wallet. You wouldn't walk with your guard down in those cities, would you? You would be much more protective of your belongings, your possessions. Brothers and sisters, we're walking in dark alleyways in the end of days, where we know that we're surrounded by wolves and thieves who aren't interested in our money. In fact, they'll probably give you money if you follow them. They're not interested in your material possessions. They're interested in your aqeedah, in your faith, in your beliefs, in your creed, in your allegiance to the Imam of your time. That's what they're interested in. Because once they take that, they've taken everything from you. In an environment like this, shouldn't we be overprotective of this aqeedah? Shouldn't we ensure that this creed, that this value system that we've been given, that we've inherited after rivers of blood were shed for this aqeedah, shouldn't we ensure that we put every lock around it so it's not stolen? Shouldn't we do the same thing with our children? Shouldn't we ensure that they're not exposed to devious and demonic ideas? Why are we so complacent then? Why do we act like someone who's walking in a city known for mugging, but they're just whistling and walking around without a care in the world before they get to their hotel and they look in their pockets and everything's gone? Why do we act so complacent? Why? You see where the problem is? We don't recognize the danger. We don't understand that filtrations are happening. We don't see how many people are abandoning this faith. Yes, alhamdulillah, the Shia faith now is almost 500 million people strong. And there is pride in that. Yes, the remembrance of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein happens across the globe. There's not a country or a city in the world where Imam al-Hussein is not glorified and honored in Muharram and Safar. Yes, these are things that we're proud of and we should cherish, and we should try and support even more. We should try and participate in all of these activities. We should try and carve our names in the list of those who served Abu Abdullah al-Hussein in one way or another, even if it's the most menial thing. Even if it's aligning the shoes, or serving tea, or giving water, or whatever it is. These are great things that we see around us. But that doesn't mean that the danger lurking behind every corner is any less detrimental or deadly or lethal. In fact, it's getting worse. Because while our numbers are growing, the danger is also intensifying. The threat is getting worse and worse. And so, be very careful. The Quran says, فَلْيَنْظُرِ الْإِنسَانُ إِلَىٰ طَعَامِهِ. Man should examine his food. But think about it. We didn't need a verse in the Quran to encourage us to look at the food that we consume so that it's free from contaminants. This is common sense. Everybody understands this. Even in the remotest part of the world, in where you have people living in jungles, they'll still examine their food. They won't eat anything. So why does the Quran say this? Imam al-Baqir alayhi salatu wassalam. He says that Allah isn't speaking about food for the stomach. He's speaking about food for the soul. إِلَىٰ عِلْمِهِ مِمَّنْ يَأْخُذُهُ. Your knowledge, who are you taking it from? How are you acquiring your knowledge and therefore your values? Where is it coming from? Be skeptical. Be, in fact, cynical. Treat everything as though it's a source of danger unless and until proven otherwise. And make sure that you are ready when the Imam comes. And by ready, I mean two things, and I'll wrap up with this. Number one, your beliefs have to be solidified. I've always said we have books written by eminent scholars that need to be read. Don't be content with a lecture that you hear about Imam al-Zaman. Don't be content with majalis that you attend. As great and as beneficial as they are, they're not enough to respond to every misconception and to address every doubt that might exist in your mind or you might be subjected to by your friends and co-workers. Read books, ask questions. One of the books that I've always recommended to brothers and sisters is one written by a senior scholar, contemporary marja, by the name of the late Grand Ayatollah Sheikh Safi Gulpaigani. His book has been translated into English as well as Urdu. In Arabic, the original work I think was in Farsi, then was translated into Arabic. And it's available in English. I think the title of the book is Selected Narrations About the 12th Imam by Ayatollah Safi Gulpaigani. Read that book. Ensure that you have the answers to the questions that you will inevitably have to face in one of the filtration phases or another. Make sure you have those answers. And one thing I've always suggested is that brothers and sisters, when they get together, maybe they can have a session once a week where they simply read from the book and they can discuss the contents of the book. So, solidify your belief in the Imam. Establish a personal relationship with the Imam, as we said last night. And the second point is that your actions and your conduct has to be such that it conforms to the teachings of the Imam. If I'm someone who leads their lives like any random Tom, Dick, and Harry, as they say. If I am committing sins, how do I expect the Imam to allow me to be in his circle? How? How does that even work? If you're in the army, you have to abide by a certain set of rules. That's why if you break those rules, what happens to you? You're court-martialed. The rules that apply to the army supersede the civic law that applies to everybody else. If you are in the fellowship of the Mahdi, you have to ensure that the do's and don'ts of Islam are followed to the letter. One way to do that is if there is a sin that you're embroiled with, that you feel like you're drowning in this sin, in this dirty habit, stop it, abandon it, quit that, and say to the Imam, I did this for you. I did this for you. If you're able to put a smile on the blessed face of Imam al-Zaman, imagine the value of that. Imagine how he will repay you. You've given him a small gift. He will reciprocate that gift many times more. So, try and purify your own life. These are the nights of the holy month of Ramadan where our actions are amplified. The nights of Qadr are coming up. Let's try and do an audit. Anyone who has a business, who's ever had an audit done, knows how daunting and exhaustive it is. They will look at every single nook and cranny. They will look at every single transaction, every receipt. Right? Do that to yourself. As Amir al-Mu'mineen says, حَاسِبُوا قَبْلَ أَن تُحَاسَبُوا. Hold yourselves to account before you are held to account. You know yourself much better than anybody else, and you care about yourself. So examine the things that you do, the habits that you have, the problems that you suffer from. Ensure you fix those. Be ready for the Imam. A person was once eager to meet the Imam. Very eager. And so he started doing a'mal. Perhaps going to Masjid al-Sahla every Tuesday night, or going to Masjid Jamkaran perhaps, reciting this dua, doing that dhikr. Eventually, he got a knock on the door in the middle of the night. Someone came to him. He said to him, you're the one who's eager to meet your Imam. He said, by Allah, I am. He said, do you really want to meet him? He said, yes. Would you do anything? He said, yes. He said, okay, but you have a problem. And the problem is that this house that you live in, this was purchased with money that included illicit and illegitimate funds. Perhaps he hadn't paid khums. وَفِي أَمْوَالِهِمْ حَقٌّ مَعْلُومٌ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, in your money and your wealth, there is a portion that belongs to other people. لِلسَّائِلِ وَالْمَحْرُومِ. It belongs either to the Imam, or it belongs to the poor in your family, or it belongs to the poor within the larger community. In any case, this is not even yours. So he said to him, you purchased the house with money that was illegitimate. He said, okay. He said, you have to give up the house. So he thought about it. You know, they say that the most emotional transaction or emotional decision that anyone is ever involved with is buying their house. And it's the biggest investment that the average person makes, right? The most expensive thing you buy. He thought about it for a while. He said, what do I have to do? He said, you have to leave your house right now. Just give it away. So he thought for a few seconds, and then he started screaming, doors, doors, thief, thief, help me, save me. The next day, that same person came to him. He said, see, you weren't ready. You weren't ready. You have attachments to things that would block your path to the Imam, your access to the Imam. Think about the companions of Imam al-Hussein on the day of Ashura. I believe that one of the most difficult tests that a companion of Imam al-Hussein was subjected to was an individual that the Imam came to, and he said to him, your 2 sons have just been captured by the government of Bani Umayyah. Imagine, they tell you your boys, your sons, your own flesh and blood, they've been arrested. Not only that, but the Imam told him, I think you should go and help them. Go save them. You see, the Imam made several declarations where he would say, إِنَّ هَذَا اللَّيْلِ قَدْ غَشِيَكُمْ فَاتَّخِذُوهُ جَمَلًا. You see the darkness of the night, how it's overshadowed you? No one will see you now. In fact, you should go because once they want me, and if they capture me, they're not going to come after you. So you're only going to be collateral damage as far as they're concerned. So take each other's hands and leave. You're absolved of your allegiance to me. So that was a general declaration the Imam made. Of course, they all stood up and said, absolutely not. أَكَلَتْنِ السِّبَاعُ حَيًّا يَا أَبَا عَبْدِ اللَّهِ إِنْ أَنَا تَرَكْتُكَ. Nafi' ibn Hilal said, may the beasts of the desert eat me alive if I ever left you, if I ever abandoned you. Another one said that if I was killed and then burnt and then had my ashes dispersed in the air and then brought back to life and had that done to me 1,000 times, I would still rather die with you. The Imam made a declaration. They all took the legendary stand that they took and said no, but there were some people the Imam spoke to directly in private. They've taken your 2 boys. Go and help them. They need their father's help right now. He said to him, Ya Aba Abdullah, I leave you for my boys. These attachments, brothers and sisters, whether it's your career, whether it's your house, whether it's your car, whether it's your money, especially if it's haram, especially if it's mixed with illicit funds, you have to get rid of them. You have to start with a clean slate. If you're going to be one of the ones who passes the filtration test, you have to be ready. Inshallah. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless us, to protect our and preserve our allegiance and our faith to the Imam of the time, and to make us among those who stand by him and support him both prior to his reappearance and fight for him after his return, inshallah. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen wa sallallahu ala Muhammadin wa alihi at-tahirin.